In a small, peaceful village surrounded by rolling fields and a winding river, there lived 3 brothers, Thomas, William, and Henry. Their parents had passed away when they were young, and the care of the family farm and the village was left to them. The eldest, Thomas, was a bold and confident man. He always spoke loudly about his dreams of power, and many people in the village listened to him because he could easily convince them with his words. William, the middle brother, was clever. He always had an answer to everything and could talk his way out of any situation. But despite his smarts, he was lazy. He preferred to spend time relaxing or planning things, rather than actually working hard to accomplish them. Henry, the youngest brother, was different. He was quiet, thoughtful, and kind. Henry spent most of his time working on the farm, helping his neighbors with their crops, or fixing things around the village. Because he was often quiet and not as bold or loud as his brothers, people often overlooked him. But he had a good heart, and everyone who knew him trusted him deeply. The 3 brothers lived under the care of their grandfather, the village elder. The elder had ruled over the village for many years, making wise decisions for the people. Now, the elder had grown old, and he knew that it was time to choose someone to take over his role and responsibilities. The choice would go to one of the 3 brothers. One sunny afternoon, the elder called the brothers to his house. They sat around a large wooden table, looking at him with anticipation. "My time is coming to an end," the elder said, in a voice that was soft but firm. "This village needs a leader who will care for the people. To decide who among you is most worthy, I will set 3 challenges. Whoever proves themselves through these challenges will inherit my land and my position as the leader of this village." The brothers looked at each other, their hearts racing. They were eager to prove themselves, but they each had their own ideas about how they would win. "I am ready for any challenge," Thomas said confidently, his eyes shining with pride. "I'll be the leader. Everyone knows I'm the best choice." William, with a sly grin, leaned back in his chair. "These challenges will be easy for someone like me," he said, twirling a piece of straw between his fingers. "I'm smarter than anyone here." Henry, who had always been humble, said nothing. He just nodded quietly, unsure of what the elder had in mind for them. He knew that he wasn't as confident or quick-witted as his brothers, but he believed that hard work and kindness were qualities that were just as important as intelligence or boldness. The elder smiled at the brothers. "The first challenge is this," he said. "Each of you must bring me the finest harvest from the fields. You have 1 week. Choose your land, gather your crops, and bring me the best produce you can find." three brothers left the elder's house, each thinking about how they would approach the task. Thomas already had a plan to hire workers to help him, and William thought he could get by with the least amount of effort by choosing an easy plot of land. But Henry decided that he would tend to a neglected field, one that had been left to weeds for a long time. He knew it would be difficult, but he believed that with hard work, he could make the field bloom again. The next day, the brothers set out to begin their work. Thomas quickly hired a group of farmhands to help him. He promised them a share of the reward if they worked quickly and efficiently. His workers focused on getting as much produce as they could, using machines to speed up the process. There was little care taken to make sure the crops were of the highest quality. William, on the other hand, chose a small, easy plot of land near the village. He didn't want to spend too much time on this challenge, so he spent most of his days talking to others and convincing them of his cleverness. He didn't work much himself, but he believed that his charm would be enough to get him through. Henry took a different approach. He went to the old, neglected plot of land. The soil was dry, and weeds had overrun the place. But Henry didn't mind. He worked hard, pulling out the weeds one by one, turning the soil, and planting seeds. He watered the ground every day and made sure the plants had enough sunlight. It was slow work, but he took pride in what he was doing. As the week went on, Thomas and William continued to focus on speed and appearances, while Henry worked steadily and carefully. He didn't try to impress anyone, but he knew that he was doing his best. Finally, the week was over, and it was time for the elder to inspect their harvests. The three brothers stood before the elder, each proud of their work. Thomas's crops were plentiful, but they were uneven and poorly grown. Some of the vegetables were bruised, and the grains were sparse. William's harvest was small, and there was little effort put into making it look good. But Henry's plot, though smaller, was full of healthy, vibrant vegetables and golden wheat. His crops looked strong and fresh. The elder examined the harvests carefully, nodding as he looked at each one. When he reached Henry's produce, he smiled. "This is the kind of harvest that shows care and diligence," he said. "It is not always the largest, but it is the best." Thomas and William were not happy with the results. "That was just luck," Thomas grumbled. "We will do better in the next challenge." The elder, however, was calm. "The second task is this," he said. "Each of you must bring me the most harmonious song in the village. You have 3 days to find and perform the best song." Thomas, eager to show off, hired musicians to compose and perform a grand piece. He made sure it was loud, with many instruments and voices, thinking that the more noise, the better. William, thinking he could impress others with his cleverness, went to the market and bought instruments, asking villagers to join him in performing a song. However, he did not put in the effort to rehearse, and the result was a mess of sounds with no melody or meaning. Henry, unsure of what to do, wandered through the village. He listened to the sounds around him, trying to think of what would be the perfect song. As he walked past a field, he heard Ella, a young woman who worked there, humming a simple tune while tending to the crops. Her voice was soft, clear, and full of emotion. There was something pure and honest in her song that touched Henry's heart. "Your song is beautiful," Henry said, walking up to her. "Would you sing it for the elder?" Ella looked up, surprised. She had not expected anyone to notice her simple song. "It's just a little tune I hum while I work," she said shyly. "It's honest," Henry replied with a smile. "That's what matters." The three brothers presented their songs to the elder. Thomas's performance was loud and filled with instruments, but it lacked any real heart. William's attempt was disjointed and lacked any melody. Ella's simple, heartfelt song, sung by Henry, was quiet but full of emotion. It touched everyone who heard it. The elder nodded in approval. "Harmony is not about loudness or show," he said. "It is about the beauty and truth in the song, and that is what Henry has brought me." The second challenge had ended with another victory for Henry, much to the displeasure of Thomas and William. They were frustrated and angry. "This isn't fair," Thomas grumbled as he stomped his feet. Henry got lucky again. "The next task will surely prove who is truly the best." William rolled his eyes. "He doesn't deserve to win," he muttered. "But we'll see who the elder picks this time. I've got a plan." The elder, who had watched his grandsons with a knowing smile, stood before them one final time. "The third and final challenge will decide who will lead this village," he said in his calm voice. "For this task, you must bring me the truest heart in the village." Thomas and William looked confused. "What does that even mean?" Thomas asked, his brow furrowed. "It means," the elder explained, "that you must find someone who shows the most kindness, who gives to others without expecting anything in return, and whose actions come from a place of true goodness. Bring that person to me." The brothers left the elder's house, each thinking about how they would win this last challenge. Thomas immediately started thinking about people he could bribe or persuade to come to the elder's house and claim that they had the truest heart. William, always the talker, figured he could find someone who would say all the right things to impress the elder. But neither brother had any real idea of what it truly meant to have a true heart. Henry, however, spent a lot of time thinking. He was unsure about how he could possibly find someone with the truest heart. But he knew one thing for sure. It wasn't about giving fancy speeches or showing off. It was about finding someone who acted selflessly, who cared for others without expecting anything in return. Henry walked through the village, asking people who had helped him and who had worked quietly without expecting praise. It was then that he saw Ella again. Ella had been busy helping an elderly neighbor carry water from the well. The woman's back was hunched, and she moved slowly, but Ella was there beside her, carrying 2 heavy buckets without complaint. Henry watched quietly from a distance. He could see how tired Ella was, but there she was, helping another without a single word of complaint. He approached her carefully. "You're always helping others," he said. "Would you come with me to meet the elder? He is looking for someone with the truest heart, and I think you might be the one." Ella looked up at him, her eyes a little surprised. "I'm just doing what anyone should do," she replied humbly, her voice soft and kind. Henry smiled gently. "Exactly," he said. "You do what is right, without looking for anything in return. That is the truest heart." The brothers returned to the elder's house with their choices, each believing they had found the right person to present. Thomas proudly brought a wealthy merchant to the elder, a man who had done many good things for the village, but had always expected something in return. He was a businessman after all, and kindness, in his mind, was a way to make connections and gain more wealth. William brought a young man who often helped with minor tasks, but had always talked more about what he had done than actually showing real kindness. Henry, however, stood with Ella. She was humble, her clothes simple, and her face was soft but sincere. There was no grand speech, no show of wealth or accomplishments. She simply stood there, quietly waiting. The elder turned to the group, his eyes sharp and kind. He listened carefully as Thomas's and William's choices spoke about their deeds, each one boasting about how good they had been or how much they had contributed. But when the elder turned to Ella, she simply said, "I don't know if my heart is the truest, but I try to be kind and do what is right." There was a long silence. The elder looked at the 3 men who had chosen people to present, and then he looked at Henry and Ella. "True leadership," the elder said softly, "requires a heart like this, humble and giving. It is not about titles or rewards, but about caring for others, no matter who they are or what they have to offer." Thomas and William were silent, their faces clouded with disappointment. They had wanted the power for themselves, and they had expected that their tricks and plans would win. But the elder's decision was final. The elder stood slowly, as if the weight of the moment was heavy upon him. "Henry," he said, "you have shown the village the qualities that make a true leader. A leader who works hard, who helps others, and who lives with a pure heart. You have shown that you understand what it means to lead with kindness and humility." Henry's heart skipped a beat. He was shocked. He had never expected to win, but here he was, standing before the elder, chosen to be the next leader of the village. He turned to Ella, his face full of gratitude. She smiled at him, her eyes warm. The next few weeks were a time of change for the village. Under Henry's leadership, things began to improve. There were no grand speeches, no promises of riches or power. Instead, Henry focused on helping the people of the village in simple ways. He worked alongside them in the fields, helping the elderly, making sure the roads were clear, and offering support to anyone who needed it. People noticed the change, and slowly the village began to thrive. Ella stayed by Henry's side, continuing to help with her work in the fields and with the villagers. Her kindness never wavered, and her simple heart continued to inspire those around her. Though she never asked for praise, the people of the village admired her for the goodness she showed every day. Thomas and William, though disappointed at first, came to realize the wisdom of the elder's decision. They had sought power and glory, but they had forgotten the true meaning of leadership. In time, they came to respect Henry's quiet strength and the way he led by example. Henry ruled the village not with commands, but with a gentle hand. He taught the people that kindness, hard work, and humility were the keys to a strong community. The village prospered under his care, and the people came to trust him completely. They knew that, under his leadership, they would always be taken care of. Years passed, and Henry's leadership continued to shine. The village grew even more beautiful, with healthy crops, happy families, and a sense of peace that spread throughout the land. Henry never forgot the lessons he had learned from the elder. He always remembered that true strength came not from power or wealth, but from a heart that was kind and willing to help others. Ella remained his close companion, always supporting him in everything he did. Together, they helped the village become a place where people lived in harmony and where every heart was valued. And so, the village thrived as the true leader, one who led with kindness and love, showed the way. Henry had proven that a heart full of love was the strongest force of all.